have with me five special guests: John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Theodore Roosevelt, John Muir, and Hannah Jones. Is capitalism beneficial to everyone in a society? We'll be asking this question and more. We'd like to know your thoughts, starting with John Rockefeller.
Well, Wes, thank you for having me. I really do think that capitalism was a fine form of government. Federal and state involvement was not necessary. The economy was okay, people were given jobs, including the immigrants, and out of all honesty, the government didn't need to be involved. Me and the other major industries had everything under control. And also, before my industry, we did not use oil, but now that we do, oil and kerosene has helped transportation and other industries to make more money, which results in more profit, therefore creating stability and growth for the economy.
President Roosevelt, what's your response?
I definitely disagree. Capitalism wasn't our best form of government, but the monopolies and trusts that Rockefeller and Carnegie were having was ripping people off, so the Sherman Antitrust Act was needed. The food and drug industries were unclean and unhealthy. They're also lying on their labels, giving false benefits.
Carnegie?
I agree with Rockefeller. I really don't think that the government should have intervened because I worked hard to get to where I was. I mean, I went from rags to riches. It was my hard-earned business and money.
John Muir, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Strongly against it. The industrial industries were able to get away with polluting the environment, resulting in putting the wildlife at risk. Thanks to Roosevelt, we created more regulations regarding the conservation for forests, wildlife, and land.
Hannah Jones, where do you stand with capitalism? Was it beneficial or detrimental?
This is a tough one. I'm kind of torn between both sides. I mean, it was horrible because of the working environments for my kids and husband. The factories were loud, dangerous, and stressful. Along with that, they weren't being paid very much, their hours were too long, and they didn't have workers' rights. But on the other side, I'm never really afraid that the stores will run out of food, or the prices will get too high. And I can buy a variety of things for much cheaper. Also, I can buy things from the store that I would originally have to make, like clothes, bedding, and blankets.
When we come back, we have more questions for our guests. We're back. Carnegie, from your experience, how has industrialism developed in the late 18th and early 19th centuries?
Industrialism was developed through machine-based manufacturing and innovation. As the techniques of iron making began to advance, trade expansion was enabled through railways and canals.
Carnegie, another question to you. How has technology developed through the Industrial Revolution, and how has it impacted society?
Specifically in my industry, the adoption of the Bessemer process was a way of creating iron and steel cheaper. I was then able to sell the iron and steel for better market price, therefore benefiting other industries.
Next question goes to Jones. Earlier you talked about the working conditions for your husband and children. What are the living conditions like?
The living conditions aren't the best. There's usually raw sewage lying in the streets. Our unit, which is very small, doesn't have very good ventilation, so it often smells and is too hot.
This next question is directed to Carnegie and Rockefeller. Oftentimes you guys are labeled robber barons. What is your response to that?
I think it is a misunderstanding. I don't think that the people realize how great of benefit the industries have affected the world. Because of these modern corporations, the United States now has a stable economy, and like I said before, we are employing a vast amount of immigrants coming in.
With him, I feel like the people giving us this title aren't looking at the big picture. Industries like Carnegie's and mine are starting the rise of the modern corporations. Last question for the night, and it goes out to President Roosevelt and John Muir. How did you guys contribute to the progressive era?
Like I said before, I overlooked the industries and had to break up the trusts. Several large corporations were overtaking the market, ripping off other small corporations. Also, in regard to the food and drug industry, we regulated the content labels, making sure that everyone knew what was in the product, and we also made sure that the food was sanitary.
Muir?
My main contribution was spreading the word for the establishment of national parks and gaining support from the public for conservation.
I would like to thank our special guests for coming out tonight, and thank you all for tuning in. Good night.